Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zolotech, and we're only a few months out from iOS 19, so I thought we'd talk about everything expected so far, what devices are supported, and many of the things you want to see in the next update from Apple. Now the first thing is, iOS 19 Beta 1 will be shown as soon as June 9th at WWDC 2025. So you'll see on June 9th, that's when WWDC takes place. They'll show off iOS 19, macOS 16, watchOS 12, and all the other operating systems as well. That's what we can expect as far as a release. Of course, we'll have betas throughout the summer, and then a public release typically around the iPhone 17 launch on the second or third week or so of September. That's usually what Apple does. They could change this, but that's what we expect as far as a release date. When it comes to supported devices, we've talked about this a little bit, but some of it has changed. It looks like iPhone XS, XR, and XS Max will no longer be supported. This is from a very reliable source that has gotten this right year after year, and it seems like they're not going to support these devices any longer. So you would need an iPhone 11 or newer to support the new version of iOS. Of course, we won't know this until Apple shows it off on June 9th, but other than that, that's what we can expect, and it's had a pretty long life, so that doesn't really surprise me. But at this point, that's what we're expecting. Of course, we do expect them to get rid of some iPads as well as far as support for iPadOS 19, but again, we'll have to wait and see what they actually say. Now, we've been hearing a lot of big news about iOS 19, such as the overall design will bring consistency and unification across iPadOS, iOS, macOS, and watchOS, and that's something I would definitely welcome. I would love to see something changed, whether that's the icons matching watchOS, visionOS, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Also, the design is said to be loosely based on visionOS. That would make it look more like this. So this is sort of a concept I put together on my phone, and it would give you an idea of what it could look like. If it had circle icons to match that of visionOS, or maybe it's something entirely different. But either way, it could show you something along these lines. We could have customizable maybe widgets, a little bit more rounded, glassy look, and that's something we're expecting. Now, we don't know if they're going to get rid of the dock. I just kind of took that away to show what it could look like and maybe arranged it a little bit differently. So it really depends on what Apple allows as far as customization, but at this point, that's what we're expecting for an overall look. It's supposed to be a fundamental re-architecture of how the device looks and feels. So not just icons, but things such as the control center could change greatly, maybe make it more simplified. I would like if I could scroll up from the bottom like we could in the past, or maybe we're just going to have different interactions overall. Maybe a fully different settings pane here where it would be more organized, and maybe even the option to go into an app, go in here and go right into the settings of photos directly from the app. That's probably one of the things I would like to see most that we've never seen so far. Also, the way you use your device is supposedly going to change. It's supposed to simplify the way users navigate and control their devices, but what that means specifically, I'm not sure, but that's what Mark Gurman has said. John Prosser has said the design sort of will have translucencies with a floating tab bar throughout, and even in some of the podcasts I've listened to, again from John Prosser and others, if we go into the apps such as Sports, so Apple's Sports app that they have, they said it sort of has this sort of feel to it, where in the upper right, we tap on it, we've got a menu that's a little bit different than anything else throughout iOS. So this could be a small hint into what we expect, where we have some different options here. It sort of expands out. We can go and edit things here with our settings, go into edit. This is something I would definitely welcome throughout iOS. Having our settings right here to go into everything we need just makes it much easier and makes a lot more sense than having to go out into settings, then back into the app. So that's something I would definitely welcome. Of course, many of the updates we're expecting are things Apple announced for iOS 18, such as Siri with context. That's expected possibly as soon as September, where we could have Siri with context where it would understand what's in your calendar, that maybe your mother is visiting from a different state, and you could say, what time do I pick up my mother? It would know what time her flight is, where it's landing, if it's late or not, and tell you where you need to pick her up, what gate, that sort of thing based on the overall airline. All of that information could be context aware and let you know specifically what you need to do. Of course, we haven't seen any of this yet, but that's something I would definitely welcome and think it would be great if it's actually implemented into iOS correctly. At this point, though, I think many of us just want a working Siri, so hopefully they do at least that. Now, another thing we're expecting to be updated that Apple already announced has to do with messages, and whether or not we get a redesign, we don't know, but we do know we're going to get RCS with end-to-end encryption. This is something that RCS can offer as a benefit and work throughout not just iOS, but Android, Windows, Mac, and all other devices that are utilizing RCS. So if the device can accept connections through RCS, then we can have encrypted end-to-end encryption, and that would be great if it's just standardized throughout the industry. So that's something Apple's working on, and we know they're working on that. Also, another feature we're expecting has to do with AirPods. AirPods is said to be gaining a live translation app or a live translation update. Now, whether or not they'll have a separate app, again, that's something I've mentioned that I would like to see year after year. We don't have that. We do have a separate settings pane, but a separate app telling us when there's updates, different features, and more, I would definitely want. And also, we could have live translations. So maybe you're visiting another country, you don't speak the language, you could put in your AirPods, listen to what someone's saying, and it would speak back what they're saying in your own native language. That's something that would be super helpful. We've seen it on different AirPods or different devices rather, and I think it's something Apple definitely should implement if they're not planning to already. We're also expecting an updated health app. And with health, that's something Apple continues to focus on greatly. And if we go into the health app, this is something Apple is planning to add Apple Intelligence to, or AI, where it could coach you along, whether you're trying to walk more, get in shape, maybe build muscle, maybe just lose some weight. It could guide you through based on what you're doing day to day and just give you some tips with privacy kept in mind. So that's something I would definitely welcome. I've been trying to walk a little bit more. You'll see throughout the week it's working out, and it could say, hey, you missed one this day. Maybe you need to walk a little bit more today, or something along those lines. So what it entails exactly, we don't know, but Apple is really focusing on health. Now, we do believe there'll be app redesigns as well for a few different things, such as camera. We've seen this from John Prosser again on Front Page Tech, where he showed off a new design for the overall camera, with again a floating dock at the bottom that has some of our settings, hopefully more pro-oriented settings, and again, hopefully settings that allow us to just go into the settings here, such as the Sports app, instead of having to go into the Settings app, then come back to this and make sure they're all correct. If everything was just in-app, it would make our lives a lot easier, I believe. Now, recently we got a redesign for photos, and many people have not been very happy with this. This is something that I hope doesn't guide the principles of iOS 19, as many people were very unhappy with how it works overall. Maybe they've taken information from that, feedback, and hopefully are building something a little bit better and even modify this to make it a little bit nicer. However, many people do seem to like it as well, such as my daughter. She actually likes it. She's younger, so maybe they're building it toward that audience. But either way, I hope they really make it a little bit different this time around. Now, we do expect other app updates, but we don't really have any details with that, whether that includes music, mail, or the entire suite of Apple apps. But either way, we'll have to wait. One other thing I wanted to mention was the overall icons. I showed that it could be round already, but one thing I really don't like is the overall idea that maybe they could be a squircle, similar to this widget here, and that really matches what Samsung has. So for example, if I show you a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, you'll see here the phone is starting up. We'll get to the home screen, and we have sort of these round icons, but you'll see a few of them here, such as Threads is sort of a squircle. I changed them to round as I don't like the overall Samsung app icons, and that's something that could be coming to iOS. Now, whether or not they'll allow us to change the overall corners, the corner radius, I highly doubt that, but either way, I would rather either have round icons or keep the ones we currently have. I think this looks great, but not everyone is going to agree with that. Now, as far as things you want to see most from iOS 19, I asked the question on Twitter or X, and let's see what you had to say, as there's quite a few different opinions, and I think the number one thing, though, is probably stability. But let's take a look. And you'll see here it says iOS 19 is said to finally bring a major redesign. What do you want most from iOS 19? Do you want features, and what are they, or just stability? For example, you'll see a few different comments here. An extra icon per row would be helpful alongside the redesign. Some other people said fixing notifications to have settings that work more globally than app-specific importations or opt-ins. So other things here, as well as just fix the bugs, stability over features. And I went through every single comment here, and the number one thing people want is overall consistency and stability. But outside of that, as far as overall features, most people want split screen multitasking. They want the ability to have one app here, not just picture in picture, similar to what we have with iPad and split view. You'll see here, if we continue to scroll down, for it not to be buggy from JBLZ. You'll see Mark says new features are always welcome, but at this point, they haven't even gotten existing things to be stable across the board. So for me, I just wish they would optimize the OS for the hardware. And I think that's pretty popular here as far as what people want. They want people to redesign the Photos app. You'll see additional things such as stability and redesign, stability, a redesign and stability. Again, that's what I hear over and over. But again, going through all of these different comments and replies, people say they want a redesign, stability, consistency, bug fixes, and another thing, not just split screen multitasking, but a number row on top of the keyboard. Now, most people that say this are typically coming from Android. So if we go into the keyboard here, they want a number row here. I don't really mind it, just tapping the button here and having the number row at the top. That's something that I'm used to since I've used iOS since the beginning, or iPhone OS 1, and it doesn't bother me at all. But many people want the ability to have that there all the time. So the option to do that would be really nice for a lot of users. And of course, a better Siri is something I saw consistently as well. Now, outside of iOS 19, we're expecting iPadOS 19 as well to add a few different things, such as productivity updates, multitasking updates, and possibly a files update where we could get maybe something like the Finder with better file access. Mark Gurman has recently said to expect it to be more Mac-like when it releases. Now, we've heard this for years, so we don't really know if that's true. And we've also heard that iOS 18 was going to be a redesign, but it seems like this year is when they're actually going to do it, where they sort of passed over it last year to work on Apple Intelligence. So lots of things coming up in the near future. We're only a few months away at this point, and hopefully we'll see iOS 19 and get to try it for ourselves fairly soon. One other thing I wanted to point out was something that iDevice Help worked on, and I wanted to share that. If we go into Safari here, you'll see the iOS 19 prototype. If we go to it, we can launch it. I've already opened it here. So if we go into it, it takes a second to load, and you've probably seen this if you've watched his videos, but I'll link it in the description so you can try it out. This gives you an idea of what this would look like on your device. So the Shane Levine and iDevice Help helped make this. So this gives you an idea of what it could look like in both light mode and dark mode, and what it would look like with round icons with translucencies. So if you want to try this out, I'll link it in the description below, and I think it looks pretty good. Maybe some things I would change here. The overall widgets maybe are a little bit too large, but either way, that gives you an idea of what it could look like. If you want to try out this one as well, I can link this in the description. I created this on top of the wallpaper here. And of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description as well. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.